tonight. Taryn Williams from RightFit. Let's go.
Thanks, guys.
Very informal chat tonight. I usually start with a couple of questions about background.
I'm super excited to see what you all ask as well. So, can you please ask really interesting and funny questions? No pressure.
We'll get it going. I usually start with a question, was there a mother or father that was an entrepreneur? That's how far I go back.
Okay.
Yeah.
Digging right back into the childhood. Okay.
Yeah.
No, my parents weren't entrepreneurs. They were super progressive parents, though. So whenever I say that, people are like,
Is that walking around the house nude?
That's what everyone thinks. So, did they take loads of drugs? Were they on acid? No, they were just really cool parents in that they let us explore and make our own decisions. We got to decide what schools we went to. We got to decide where we lived. We travelled and moved overseas a lot. And they would sort of say, okay, do you want to live in this country or this country? Do you want to go to this school or that school? Let's go and look at all the schools and you guys decide where you want to go to school. So they were just really progressive and sort of helped us form decision-making, powers and stuff from really early on.
Was this with your mum's role, your dad's role?
Both. They were both just, so my mum was a stay-at-home mum and an awesome parent and has been my biggest champion and supporter, ever since I was born. My dad absolutely loved his job and he was an environmental engineer, nothing entrepreneurial, but absolutely loved his job and had an amazing work ethic. And I think that's where I got my love of work from. I really, obviously, I have always loved what I do. And I think growing up seeing him super passionate about his work was probably pretty formative. I think the entrepreneurial thing came, because people always ask, is it born? Are you born an entrepreneur or is it something that you grow into? And I think back when I was starting my first business, there wasn't startup communities. No one spoke about being an entrepreneur. I don't think it was a thing that you knew about. But a lot of my friends had their own businesses. And I think being surrounded by that, I didn't realise that being an entrepreneur, not having a 9-to-5 was something different. I don't think that I realised, that this is a different thing than going to university and following that traditional career path, going out, getting a job, getting a 9-to-5 and working for someone else. I was just sort of surrounded by people who had done it differently, who had a variety of different businesses of their own. So I think kind of being surrounded by that was probably where, when I went to launch my own business, I sort of had these people around me who had done it and was sort of a bit of a sounding board for me.
Was that because where you travelled, the people you're talking about? Where did you travel to as a kid?
So I was born in the Barossa Valley in South Australia. I grew up in Fiji, then moved to, so I was there for about 6 years. Then Far North Queensland, then Canberra for university, then Japan. Then I spent a little bit of time in Korea. So I've sort of been all over the place. Bit of time in the UK. I've been in Sydney for about 11 years now. So it's kind of all over the place. So I got to see a lot of the world and I got to travel a lot when I was modelling. So. And
so, so your education, right? So after traveling around the world, you had this exposure to a lot of entrepreneurs and then different cultures, everything. What was the education like? Or you said modelling. Tell me how this all kind of fits together. Yeah.
So I started modelling when I was about 15. Super glamorous stuff like Westfield catalogues and the really cool, super cheesy. Lots of Take 5 magazines. I don't know if you've seen those. Real, paying a 30-year-old mum role when I was 18. So I started modelling when I was about 15. I got to travel a lot with that. Finished high school. My parents being these awesome parents that they were, I was overseas modelling and they were we're moving house. We're moving to Bowral, which is in the Southern Highlands. It's about 2 hours, hour and a half out of Sydney. There's no universities there. You're going to have to decide where you want to go to university. You can't come home because we've sold the family house and we're moving. And I was I kind of hadn't decided where I wanted to go to uni, what I was going to do, and they're well, you kind of need to figure that out whilst you're overseas and now. I was oh, okay.
So it's still a very much a focus we want you to go to uni, right?
So they were they were super cool, take a year off if you want, do whatever you want, but you just can't, you don't have a childhood bedroom anymore, so you can't come home. So go find something to do with your life. So I sort of applied to a whole bunch of different unis. I think it's your equivalent, I finished school in Queensland, so it's called something different there. But I got a really good UAI, and so I got special acceptance into quite a few courses, and that I could complete in a really short period of time. So I was I don't really know what I want to do. I had a kind of like idea of I wanted to be able to travel. I wanted something that allowed me to change people's lives. I was thinking maybe law, maybe politics, I don't know. So I ended up enrolling in international relations at ANU in Canberra. Never been to Canberra before, didn't know how cold it was. And yeah, also it's a really small town. I actually secretly love Canberra, so I'm not gonna slag it. But so yeah, packed up, moved to Canberra and started university there. And probably about maybe the first year in, I realised university was probably not for me. I think university education is awesome for those people that it's designed for, and I definitely want like my lawyers, whoever had the law startup, definitely want my lawyers, I want my doctors to go to university. Like there's definitely some skills that, you know, like I think it's really important you go to university for. Some things like arts, communications, you know, PR, maybe not, maybe go get like some practical on the ground experience. So I remember vividly being in this university lecture one day, and I was like, I'd been overseas for work, I'd come in, I was reading the newspaper, and my lecturer was up the front, like lecturing on like something from Europe in the 1600s, and I was like, this is like modern history. And I was like, this is gonna be a fucking long class. And the two people in front of me were like, oh my God, this is so interesting. And I was like,
you're in the wrong place.
I'm totally in the wrong place.
Yeah.
So I stuck it out purely because I kind of didn't know what else I wanted to do. And it was my last semester. I'd passed all my exams, handed in all my final assignments, and I got this opportunity to go and work in Korea. And I was like, wow, like what an awesome experience. I went to my lecturers and I was like, cool, so I'm going away, like these are my dates, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh, if you go, like we'll fail you based on attendance. And I was like, but like I'm studying international relations, I should get extra credit for this. Like I'm going to work overseas, like how does that work? Like I've handed everything in. And they were like, no, you still have to show up and get like your name marked off.
It's a bit of bullshit.
And I was like, oh, this is ridiculous. So yeah. I was like, look, the bureaucracy's always going to win. You can't fight against a union like that. And so I was like, you know what, this is totally a sign. Like this is a once in a lifetime opportunity to go and work in somewhere like Korea. So handed in my my notice and didn't get my degree. And I kind of always thought I'll go back and finish it at some point, which I clearly never did. And went and worked in Korea for a bit. So.
What was the gig in Korea?
So I was modelling over there and doing a little bit of production work, and it was definitely one of those situations that you put your parents in where they're like, wow, that was probably like a really naive and bad decision. I'd done no research on like what it was like in Korea. It was a really, really full-on experience. They confiscated all of our passports. We were like locked down. Like they took us over the border. It was a pretty full-on experience. There was definitely moments where I was like thinking I wasn't going to get to come back. Like we had armed guards on our doors and stuff. It was pretty intense. Right. But it was an amazing experience, and I got to like meet people from all over the world. They had people there from all different countries, and it taught me a lot. I mean, I was 19 or whatever, so it was a pretty interesting experience.
When did the move to like the business side happen?
So I'd been modelling for I don't know, since I was 15. So I was 21 when I launched the Blink. So I'd started sort of. I absolutely loved our industry. Like I loved the creative industry. I loved everything about it. I loved like it affords you all of these amazing opportunities. Like I got to work with some of the coolest, like most talented, like photographers and creative directors and art directors and advertising agents. Like it was amazing. But there were some things that just totally didn't make sense to me. Like models don't get paid until their agent gets paid, and then their agent holds money for like another 30 or 60 days. So like you could do a job and you might not get paid for like 6 months. I was like, that does not make any sense to me. And I was like, it's such a solvable problem, right? Like, and then agents and their clients, so ad agencies or producers or whatever, have these awful relationships. Like they fight, like they're not united towards a common goal. Agents and models have a horrible relationship. Like there's all these horror stories about people being told to lose weight, or that they're not pretty enough, or being threatened like we're going to drop you if you don't do this job. Like it was just a really, really archaic industry. And it seemed to me like such easy to solve problems. Like it's not that difficult to treat people decently and with respect, pay them on time. Like these are not like groundbreaking things. But our industry just seemed to have been left behind. No one had sort of ever innovated. And everything was also super, super manual. So like you would get like a phone call from your booker the day before the job saying like, okay, you've got a job tomorrow. It was not scalable. Like none of this process was scalable or sustainable long term. So there were so many models who were dropping out of the industry because it wasn't financially viable for them, and they couldn't organise the rest of their life around this sort of chaotic, And so I'd worked and I'd started working as a producer as well. So I worked for a couple of advertising photographers as a producer, and I was working as an event producer as well.
What were they involved?
So everything from, being client-side, producing, casting, so organising the photo shoots, booking venues, booking locations, casting talent, organising hair and makeup, working with creatives to actually come up with the concept and doing treatments. And then I was an event producer as well, so I show-called like a lot of Fashion Week, Trop Fest, like big outdoor music festivals.
How are we doing here tonight?
Like that. Awesome, nailed it, look.
The
Everything
best.
works.
It's like the creme de la creme of startup events. Yeah.
All over it. So I'd work client side as well, and so I could see from a client, like they were having all of these pain points as well. It wasn't like they were winning in this scenario. They were trying to book talent, and talent were kind of like, a bit reluctant to do the job because they're not going to get paid for 90 days or whatever. So why are they going to show up and do an amazing job for you if they're like not going to get paid? So that's, I think, where this common misconception about models being flaky or whatever was coming from. So I've always been super, super stubborn and pig-headed. My parents will tell you that. And so I was like, I'm just going to start an agency. Like, it's not that hard. Like, really, blissful naivety of someone who's never started a company. It's not that hard. I'll just start a company. I was going to start an agency. I'm going to treat people really, really well. We're going to pay our talent within 7 days. We're going to treat our clients really well. We're going to be on the same page as them. We're going to be united about what success looks like. And it's going to be super easy. Obviously, it's not super easy, but that's where the initial concept for Wink came from. And I wanted it to be, the name came from, I wanted it to be like a referral-only system, like a wink of acknowledgement. And so we had about 30 models on the books when we launched. It started really small. And I wanted it to just be clients that we knew and people that we liked and talent that we liked and people who wanted to do like a really awesome job.
So very early on, relationships were very important, right?
Yeah, super important.
How can that be translated to the audience here and their startups and the importance of relationship? What advice do you
Coming
have?
to things like tonight is a great start. I mean, it's all about networking. It's all about who you know. It's all about, I mean, that's why I say like getting university degree is awesome, definitely for some people, but getting out there and getting work experience and networking and making sure you maintain those relationships and putting effort into them is so important. Like, networking is hands down. Like, my little black book of contacts was the reason that I could launch that agency. Like, I had these amazing relationships with talent that I'd sustained over the years, and then I had all of this like black book of contacts with client side that I could launch with and say, and they knew me and they respected me, and I'd put time and energy into nourishing those relationships. So when I said, look, I'm going to launch this agency, they were like, cool, we get that, we support you, we know you as a person. So
tell me about the early days with Wink and getting that started and some of the issues.
It was super hard, definitely. And I remember like vividly.
Was this in Sydney too? Yeah.
Yes, so this is in Sydney. So we launched just in Sydney. We didn't open the Melbourne office until we were probably 3 or 4 years old. So launched in Sydney. We were very lucky that the first campaign that we booked was for Nokia flip phones. Remember those? And they were super cool. A global Nokia print campaign, and they booked 7 of our talent. This is back when like talent for those things were like getting paid huge amounts of money. So it was a global billboard print campaign. So launching, we actually had the cash flow to actually be able to launch, build the website. We started super lean, like website, mobile phone, no offices, like no support. And I did absolutely everything. Like I was answering the phone, and mainly because I'm a control freak also. Answering the phone, doing our BAS, like doing every single booking. Like it was super, super hard. And we joke about it, Mags is here tonight, like sitting up and Googling like photographers in Sydney that we could cold call, like it was really like hard. There was no like outreach tools like there is now. There's no like growth hacking. There was no like online marketing, like Facebook was barely a thing, So it was like a super manual. You had to like maintain those relationships, call up your little black book and ask for referrals. LinkedIn wasn't a thing. Like you couldn't like find people. Yeah. And so we started super lean and built out the business and we were really, really lucky. The business was really built on referrals, people having a great experience, talent referring other models to us, and then clients referring other models to us, other clients to us. So it sort of grew really organically for probably the first 2 years. And I didn't know anything about like building a culture or like marketing a business or how to scale a business or build a team or anything like that. I was running pretty blind. I was really lucky that I had some pretty amazing mentors around me, one of whom owned an ad agency and had obviously been through this before. So there was moments where I was like, people would be like, look, can we have a copy of your public liability insurance? And I was like, yes, what the fuck is public liability? Yeah. So it was definitely like learning on the fly. And that's all businesses, fake it till you make it.
Yeah. But how long before it was kind of comfortable for you?
I was never comfortable.
No, because you're always growing.
It was always growing and going through different pain points and scaling. And I think that's what I loved about it too, is like as we grew, like obviously then you start hiring a team, and we got to a size where I was like, okay, we actually do need awesome people around us. Like we need an amazing CFO, we need amazing bookkeepers, we need an amazing like legal expert, we need all of these people around us to actually be able to allow this to scale. So that took probably 3 years for it to really start to take shape and really start to feel like, okay, this is a real company with, you know, we've got some systems and processes in place. There was definitely a lot of stuff that was still, you know, flying by the seat of our pants. But
well, you were also given like the premise for the business. You were pushing back on clients too with the terms.
Yeah.
Kind of like disrupting how the terms were done.
Yeah.
So how did that conversation go with Nokia saying, well, you got to pay me within 5 days, you're paying these guys in 7 days?
So we actually bankrolled all of the payments. So clients could still pay on their terms.
Right.
We tried to get them down to, initially it was 30 days, and we've got it down now to 14 days. But so we were and we still had ad agencies that were paying in 90 days. So we had to like bankroll all of that. So cash flow was like huge issue, literally just managed by being completely scrupulous with what we spent our money on and never paying myself or paying myself last, and just having to be really, really scrappy for those first like 3 years. It was
there
super
investment?
tough.
Can I ask
No, we didn't. Never.
That's even harder.
Completely bootstrapped the whole way through. So
The banks aren't very helpful.
no,
Except for NAB with Tim.
no, and I refused to get a credit card. Yeah, except for that nice gentleman.
Except for NAB, yeah.
I refused to get a credit card. Like I didn't have a credit card until I was 30. Like there was all of these things that I was just like, no, we can do this if we're really, really smart with our money. We can make this work. And so we paid our models within 7 days, but bankrolled it all for clients.
So talk about the growth. You said you went to Melbourne. You talked about a bit about culture. How did the Wink grow out, and then let's get into the journey of the RightFit. And I'm guessing it was you saw the problem with your own agency.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Wink started expanding. So Wink's now got about 650 models on the books, Australia-wide. So it grew really organically. We had so much demand in the other states, which is why we opened offices there. Initially, we were servicing everything from the Sydney office, and that sort of wasn't scalable. We needed to put a team on the ground in each location. The business sort of started to scale. And that's where, so my first foray into technology was actually building an app for Wink. So blissful naivety of someone who'd never built a tech platform before as well. I was like, okay, I just need to build, we were like SMSing talent. Are you available for casting tomorrow? They'd be like, yes. Then we'd send them off to a client and say, yep, these are the 6 people that are available. Not scalable or sustainable. My mobile phone for years was like connected to the business. So like I didn't have personal SMS or anything because the girls and all the bookers in the office would be using it to SMS people like, can you go? What was your overtime? Blah, blah. Huge opportunity for human error as well, obviously, and people texting in like, yeah, I did an hour of overtime, people not invoicing the client for an hour of overtime, nightmare. So I was like, okay, we need to build a system that can fix this. Surely, like, it's not that hard. What we'll do is we'll build an app that can check availability, just gives us like a little checklist of who's available for each job, and we'll just like send that to clients. So I went and met with some developers, and I was like, cool, this is the idea. And then I was like, while we're at it, like, why don't we build something that like tells us if they did overtime? And then what if it like checked their overtime against their initial booking? Why don't we like build a whole calendar management tool in there? And while we're doing that, why don't we build like an ability for them, like an onboarding process? So when they join, we'll have all their details and like we'll know if their shoe size changes or like, you know, their hair changes. And then maybe if they could upload photos. And then, why don't we actually build a Xero integration so it can automatically do our payroll? Turned into like this bigger than Ben-Hur project. And obviously I didn't have developers who were pushing back. They're like, awesome. Pay us all the money, like we'll build everything.
It'll be ready in 2 years.
Yes, yeah. So it took about 18 months, and it was a super, super expensive, I call it a really expensive university degree because it was like a super expensive way of learning how not to do technology. But what it ended up, we actually built a fucking amazing product. So we got to the end of this thing and I was like, wow, this is actually really incredible. We built something that allowed the business to scale. It meant that every time we added another 20 models, we didn't have to add another booker. And it also removed all the opportunity for human error in the business. And it meant that now anyone in the business can look up any client history, any model's history, see what campaigns they've worked on, see if there's ever going to be any conflicts in market. It's all contained in this one system. So whilst it was really, really hard, it was an amazing thing for the business. So I got to the end of that build. I got about halfway through the build and I was like, oh, imagine if we could white label this and sell this to other agencies. That's a brilliant idea. And then I was like, software as a service is a terrible idea. Imagine trying to like sell that to other agencies who have no idea about technology. Like it's taken you 18 months to get here. Imagine all the customization you're gonna have to go through. This is gonna be a nightmare. Terrible idea, don't do that. So I got to the end and I was like, okay, well, what if we could use it to allow clients to book talent directly? And this is like where the initial idea of the RightFit sort of started forming. I was like, there is an opportunity. During that 18-month period, there'd been so many changes in our industry, like the advent of social media influencers, which just weren't a thing before. Clients wanting more relatable talent in their campaigns. So gone were the days of like a 19-year-old, 5'11" supermodel being featured in a Mercedes-Benz ad. It was like a 45-year-old relatable man who could actually afford to buy the car. So all of these things, all of these things were sort of changing at the same time. Budgets were changing because people were moving their spend online and creating these small bits of digital snackable content that needed to be produced. These always-on social channels that people needed to feed. So brands were like constantly shooting content. So it needed to be done like really efficiently and really cheaply, obviously. So all of these things were happening in the background and kind of creating this noise while we were building this platform. And I was like, okay, if we could solve that problem, because obviously influencers were coming to Wink and being like, can you represent me? And we're like, no, like you don't fit into any of our buckets. And Wink has a classics division and a sports division, all of these things, and we're kind of becoming all things to all people. And I was like, okay, we need to get really clear on what that business is about. And then, okay, with all of this work that we're turning away, because obviously for agency to sustain, it needs to be financially viable to take on a job. So if we're turning away clients at anything that was under $500, it's like not worth our time. We make 20% of that not viable. So we were turning away all this work that was this sort of social content stuff. And I was like, okay, if we could direct that to a platform where they could self-service and manage that, but the heart of everything that I'd created at Wink was making sure that talent were protected and that they were paid on time and that there was contracts in place and that it was safe and secure. Not just going, we could have just created a Facebook group and gone, I'll post it there. So I thought, okay, if we can build something that manages the payment process so it's safe and we manage like the onboarding process for the talent, we make sure that they're good people, we're screening them, we're screening clients to make sure that there's no crazies, can we actually build a platform that this could be sustainable? And so that's where the idea for TheRight.Fit came from. So we started working on it about 18 months ago.
Did you use the same developers, just out of curiosity?
No. We churned through like 7 developers building that first platform. No, we churned through about 3, building different parts of it. 7's a bit extreme, 3. And that was a big part of the reason that I brought development in-house this time. So, but going through that experience, I was like, it doesn't matter how prescriptive you are with developers. Sorry if there's developers in the room. I was like...
There's a few.
It's all right. Didn't matter how prescriptive you are. You're like, build me a contact form, need a contact form, here's the fields that I need, blah, blah. Even when I got to the point where I knew a lot more about, building out some wireframes and some UX first and going through that process, I was like, build me a contact form, this is what I need, blah, blah, blah. You get it back and you're like, great, it's an awesome contact field, but it doesn't send me an email. And they're like, but you didn't ask for that. You didn't ask me to send an email anywhere. And I was like, fuck.
Need a people person.
So I needed a product manager. So with this build, I was like, I knew it was going to be a big, chunky build, and I knew it was going to have a lot of complexities in the system. So I really wanted to internalize development. I really wanted a CTO or like really strong tech lead from the start, which is obviously super hard. Like if you are not, obviously I'm not tech background, to find someone and hire them and screen them. And obviously it's important to have a good cultural fit as well. So that process took longer than I wanted, definitely. And there was definitely moments where I nearly caved and I was like, fuck, we'll just get an agency to do it.
That's big money.
Yeah, so I stuck it out and now we have an amazing internal dev team who have just completely,
And do you have your own designers that work on the other stuff doing UX?
Yes, yeah. So we've got a full stack developer. We've got a full-time front-end UX UI and then 2 back-end as well.
So talk about early stages, marketplace, chicken and the eggs kind of thing. Go through some of the problems for the marketplace and how you've overcome them and some of the early wins, I guess.
Yeah. So very early in the piece, I read this amazing article, I wish I could remember what it was, about market networks. So I'd read a lot about like how hard marketplaces are, and I was like, I wanted there to be this inbuilt social element of a market network. So it's like marketplace, this sort of social integration, making it a place that it's not just transactional. So that was the big broad vision for the RightFit long term, is that it becomes a real market network. So obviously,
I know the article.
Oh, okay, yeah. I think it's Clayton Christensen, or it could be. I don't know. Anyway, I'll send it to you when I find it. So that was sort of the big broad vision, and I was like, this is what I want to create. I know that we can build it. It's just going to take some time, and it's going to start out as a very transactional marketplace. Like, that's fact. It has to be. But in the background, we'll start building in all of the elements of like project management and some SaaS functionality, which is what we're about to launch in about 3 weeks. So. Building a marketplace is really hard. For anyone that hasn't built one, they're really fucking hard, and they take a long time to sort of get firing. And the really important point is getting that liquidity point, like getting both sides of the marketplace thriving at the same time. So obviously we were really lucky in that I had an established business of 650 models that we could port across or ask to join if they wanted to the marketplace. And we had this great, connection database of photographers and hair and makeup artists and stylists. And so in that aspect, I was probably pretty blessed. I had a huge domain expertise, obviously, to come in with. So we had one side of the marketplace, the supply side, pretty sorted from day one. And we launched that in December.
Was there any... sorry, I want to cut you off because I'm rude.
Unacceptable.
No.
We launched that in December and started soft onboarding people, and then launched the client side in March.
Was there any concern for like your existing business?
Yes.
Like this is like, I don't know, I'm making 20% over here. Yeah. Now I'm going to make 6% or something on the clip.
Yeah.
How did you overcome was your thinking like, well, this is scalable, this is not quite as scalable?
Yeah.
How did you get your head around that?
Definitely. I could see the landscape changing. So I knew that there wasn't going to be car ads for models used to be $40,000, and they just were not. They're $4 now. So I was like, this industry is changing and the landscape is changing and things are moving online. So the advent of social media meant if people wanted to contact an influencer or a model or a photographer, they could do it direct. They didn't need to go through an agency anymore. So I knew that whilst I do obviously still own an agency, I do believe there's a place for agents and agencies, but I don't think that they're going to be the powerhouses that they used to be. So I could see that this was changing, because people ask me that all the time, why would you cannibalize your own business? Go disrupt another industry, don't cannibalize your own existing profitable business. But I could see someone was going to do it. It was going to happen. So it was either going to be us or someone else. So I was like, well, better be us, because I don't want someone else cannibalizing my business and stealing all my clients. So it definitely was something I was concerned about. And I was like, and we really didn't know. We were like, are all of our clients immediately just going to be like, it's cheaper over here, off we go? Or is there going to be a place for both? So the first 3 months was obviously super nerve-wracking. But there is a place for both, and we do, Wink's still thriving and doing really well.
And you sell more on service now with the high-end clients? It's we're more hands-on.
Yeah, and it's sort of this perfect balance that if you come to the RightFit and you're like, hi, I need help, can you please tell me what to buy online? There's a full-service agency if you want that. And then at Wink, if you don't have the budget or, you don't have turnaround time or whatever to go through a full casting process, or you need the additional services that Wink doesn't offer, then they can plug into us. So it's very complementary. Definitely over time, we will cannibalize more of their business, I'm sure. I could say I'm not there anymore, but I don't work in the business day to day, so.
Do you think that you've made the right move, obviously, and when do you think it's... Well, tell me about some of the early wins. There must be some interesting stories around, say a woman that has a great Instagram following that now you're helping her make a living.
Yeah. It's been super, and we built into the platform a feedback loop for both sides, obviously client and talent, and it gets emailed to us every time someone does a job or gets a booking or whatever, and it's super amazing, seeing exactly that sort of feedback come through where people are like, I literally joined yesterday and I've got my first booking and it's this $2,000 photo shoot, and I've been modeling for 6 months and I've never got a job before, and I've got one in 24 hours with you guys. And so we see this awesome feedback come from both sides of the marketplace. So it is so rewarding, because obviously it's so fucking hard, it's exhausting building a marketplace. So it is awesome seeing it work and seeing the positive feedback that you get from clients and from talent, and that you are actually helping people build a thriving career where they couldn't before. If they didn't have a way, especially social media influencers, they don't have a safe way to monetize their following. Like there were people contacting them on Instagram and saying, hey, can you just post for me? I'll pay $100, and then they're not getting paid, and all of the pain points that I'd seen before. So the fact that they can now safely conduct that transaction and know that they're going to get paid and know that it's all the public liability and personal property damage is all included in the transaction. So we make sure that they're safe, and that's super valuable for clients and for talent.
How much of the iteration is happening based on the feedback?
Daily. I mean, we're pushing out new features daily, and we split test everything, and we have heat mapping on the website. So we're about to do a huge release in probably about 3 weeks, which is a complete rebuild of the platform, which has been based on, everyone know, like your MVP is, you hack it together, you get it up super, super quick. And there's definitely things that I wanted to change. Whilst I do still think it's a really beautiful product, and I probably pushed our dev team a little bit too hard and was like, it's not going until it's perfect. And it was literally the day that I walked on stage last year at PauseFest that we launched the platform. I was walking on stage to talk about like TheRight.Fit, and we didn't actually have the fucking website up. And I was like, I don't fucking care what it looks like. You need to put it live now because I'm fucking walking on the stage. So I pushed them pretty hard because I did want it to be like, it's a beautiful industry. It needed to be a beautiful product, and I didn't want to launch with something less than that. But obviously there's definitely things that you go, if that button does not make sense. And we spent a lot of time doing customer research sessions before, during, and now, especially going into the new product launch, making sure that we're getting both sides right. And we built these internal feedback loops in throughout the product so that people can give us feedback as to what's working, what changes they want. And we spend a lot of time having face-to-face meetings with clients going, what else do you need? Like what other pain points do you have? So we're adding artists next as well. So like graffiti artists and topographers, cool, and sculptors and things like that. And sound, so like composers and musicians and DJs.
Really cool.
That are obviously a part of the creative industry. So yeah, so definitely always adding stuff and always trying to iterate and improve the product. Even just trying to get slightly better conversion rates, like just all the tiny little things that you don't think make a difference, like wording or, open rates in emails that you can slightly improve.
What do you think, the obvious benefit I see to, startups here is like the ability to create a great marketing, use it as a marketing asset and have great models and people that just take your marketing to the next level, right? What other benefits do you see for startup community using?
That's probably when I was speaking at a conference recently, and that was the real thing that really hit home for me, is that we're allowing people to produce content that couldn't produce content before. And startups is like the perfect example. We did a shoot with the Wine Gallery.
Because otherwise you'd have your mum and your cousin in the thing, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like they could actually get like a professional photographer, real professional talent, professional hair and makeup artist, professional videographer, and they shot all of their content. And they're like a startup. Like there's no way that they would have been able to do that before. So that's like super rewarding to me. Obviously we work with like global ad agencies and Coca-Cola and like Shandon and people like that as well, which is awesome. Like great to see big brands embracing doing it a different way. But the fact that we're allowing like people who, both sides of the marketplace, talent who couldn't, monetize their following, or, hair and makeup artists in rural areas who couldn't get bookings before, so who can now do that. But startup, I know the hustle is real when you're a startup. Like it's every single cent counts. So if you can find awesome influencers to write about your product, then it's super cool.
Is this a bootstrap business as well? What's the plan for this one?
No. So we raised venture capital August last year, which was a whole different story in itself. So the product was about 4 weeks old. I know quite a few venture capitalists just from around the traps and being involved in. I'm on the board of TechSydney, and I'd sort of gone to see a friend who owns a venture capital firm, and they do marketplaces, that's their thing. And literally having like proper life crisis. I was like, what the fuck am I going to do? I'm allowed to swear, I didn't know.
Yeah.
Sorry, a bit late now. What am I going to do? I'm doing all of these public speaking engagements. There's this sort of brand Taryn Williams thing. There's Wink models, and now I've just launched this platform that I don't know if it's going to work. I don't know if it's a good idea. I've never built like a scalable international two-sided marketplace before. Like I'm way overcommitted. do I sell Link? Like, how would that look? Am I going to have to do an earn out? Can I do an earn out when I've got a competing business? Like, all of the questions. What do I do? And he was like, you should focus on the right fit. It's a fucking awesome idea, and you should raise capital, and you should do it now, and you should raise money with us, and yeah, like this. And I was like, as if I didn't have enough problems. Like, I don't need to raise capital now. So I guess I walked away from that being like, okay, I need to do this. We need to actually, if we're going to go big or go home. We were in a very lucky position that we didn't need funds to continue to grow and run the Right Fit. We could continue to fund that business. But obviously raising capital meant that we could do it much faster, and we could build out the team and, really spend some money on marketing and things like that. So went away and sat down with the team and had like a really, heart-to-heart conversation. Like, if we're going to do this, like, we're going to go big or go home, and it's going to be like a really, really intense forever. No, I probably sold it as 12 months, but it's the rest of your life now. So do we want to do this? Like, are we going to do it? Or otherwise we can just try and grow more organically. We can continue to fund it. Obviously our marketing budgets are going to be limited, and you can't, grow out the team as quick as you want. So what do you guys want to do? And I spent, a lot of time talking to my mentor about it and going like, what would this process look like? And I spent a lot of time trying to reconcile it with myself and go like, okay, how much of my company would I be comfortable parting with? And thinking about like, okay, dilution down the track once you've done a Series A and B and C and whatever. How much am I willing to part with? And then I went down and wrote out all of the people that would be like on my dream, if I could have a dream team, like if I was building like a fake NRL, like,
Yeah, I love this. This is great.
Basketball, like whatever, my draft pick. Who would I have like as my dream partners in the business? So I wrote them all out. And
you're almost thinking to exit.
Yeah. So
or like a...
Yeah. I was like, what would it look like? Who would they be? And then went back to the venture capitalists and said, okay, like, I think you guys know marketplaces. You are experts in marketplaces. I think like we would love to partner with you on this. Let's look at what that might look like. But
in your notes, I'm just curious because I've heard like there was a very smart guy that did this from Singapore, and he would say he would look at his startup and go, "Here's the end game," and work backwards. And I love this because I never had many people that do it.
Yeah.
Do you put figures? Will you put in figures against like what I'm going to raise on my Series A?
No. Well, we'd obviously built out like a financial model for about 2 years, but it's like.
Oh, no,
you got no idea what's going to happen. Like, literally, like it's guesstimating. Like, you don't know how many users you're going to have. So, no, we definitely didn't have like, I want to exit in 5 years' time and I want the company to be valued at X. But I knew what I wanted the journey to look like, and I knew what I'd learned from Wink was that I needed the right people around me. I knew I couldn't do it on my own, and I knew if I was going to do it a second time, because I knew how exhausting it was doing it the first time, I was like, this time I want like the best in breed around me from day one. So how can I get those people around me, and what's it going to look like? And so, yeah, went back to our venture capital partners, awesome at marketplaces, and said, look, can I keep a portion of the round? Let's agree on a figure and how much money we need to get to our next sort of raise and build out the team. But out of that, can I keep a portion of it and then go to my dream list and see if any of these people want to invest in our company? Because I want like the fucking best in breed. And they were like, yeah, okay, cool. Like, do that.
They help facilitate any of those by chance?
I'm like a massive LinkedIn stalker also.
Yeah.
So I'll hit everyone up on LinkedIn. And I'm so not afraid of a cold call as well. So I was like, they did introduce me to a few people that I wasn't personally connected with, but most of the people I was just like, hey, can we have coffee? I want to talk to you about something. Some of them I knew, like they'd sort of heard about the product and what we were trying to do, and they were related to our industry. So it was like sort of a warm touch, but others.
Can we talk about the dream team? You're allowed to talk about the
yeah,
dream team?
so a lot of them, they're like most advertising people, production people, global CEOs of ad groups and things like that. So I was like, you are like the people that I need around me who know exactly, the market that we're trying to disrupt, and you are our perfect demand side client. So do you want to get involved? And so went and had some of those conversations and sort of finalised our dream team. It definitely took longer doing it that way than if we'd just taken the whole amount of money from Airtree, our venture capital partners. But it was super worth it because now we have this amazing, diverse sort of sounding board that we can go to and be like, I need your help solving this particular problem.
Very good, Daniel.
Both. Unofficially, John Henderson's actually on our board, but they unofficially are all like sort of floating board members and come in at any one time. So
I think they're about the
fucking
smartest
awesome.
investors in.
Yeah.
I'd say
They are.
that and Rampersand, which I'm speaker for next month.
And they're amazing. And like I'd never been through a capital raise before, super intimidated by the whole process. And they were amazing, super transparent. Like their term sheets are online. And you know, I sort of reconciled myself with the things that I was willing to give up and things that I wasn't. And they were super happy to sit down. And I think that's really important. Like this is your company, it's your baby, and you're like getting married to these people. Like this is like forever or until you blow it up, you know. So you really need to be comfortable about the deal. So I spent a lot of time, like they obviously did their due diligence. We did a lot of reverse due diligence on them and spoke to all of their portfolio companies. What do they like to work with? Give me some like clear examples of how they've actually helped, like problems that they've actually solved. And sat down and spent a lot of time one-on-one with them and going through like, I'm not comfortable with this clause, like I can't reconcile myself with it. Like, can we negotiate on that, or can you? And because I think it's really important, like you've got to be comfortable with the deal. If you're not, don't do it.
I'm curious about, coming from a creative background and dealing with venture capital, which is traditionally trying to keep it as lean as fuck, right? So they can put less money in. How do you argue this? Like, I know I need $500,000 or whatever for this ad, or to do a great job with creative. Where they would be trying to like the other startup that the accounting startup whatever can do it for $25,000. Why do you need $500,000? How did you have this?
We're actually very lucky in that we have like this huge pool of creative resources to pull on. Sure. We actually can produce awesome creative for actually not that much money. But I definitely agree with you. Like there's definitely the way that we look at the universe is totally different. And I think that's why it's really important to have like this diverse sounding board. So they come in and they, they'll be like, this is like a really black and white way of looking at the world. And we'll come in and be like, here's some shades of grey. And it's really good because they hold us accountable and vice versa. At the end of the day, like super, from day one, they've been super like, this is your company. We can give you advice. Whether or not you choose to listen to it is completely up to you. So it's really good. It's there's so many like times where I've been able to go to them and been like, I don't know how to solve this problem. Like, let's work it together, and just get a completely different perspective. And they've obviously been through this a million times before and grown many different marketplaces.
Given the portfolio. Because I didn't know it was Airtree, by the way, but 90 Seconds, right?
Yes.
Super cool business.
Yeah.
I think they're from New Zealand.
Tim is awesome. And super
when I'm just hearing this, so they allow you to, like, they've got videographers around the world, Paris, Dubai, whatever, and you can kind of collate, these scenes and create this amazing... I see so many similarities.
Yes.
Is there a way to kind of team that?
Yeah, we actually do a lot of work with 90 Seconds. And they'd just made the investment in 90 Seconds. They just closed the deal probably just before they sort of started speaking to us. So they saw the natural synergies there as well. And Tim was very much about building a market network as well. So when we came in and we were like, we're building a market network, they're like, yes, you guys get it. It's not just about marketplaces anymore. There's lots of natural synergies, and I think it was great. They understood what we were trying to do, and they understood the size of the market and the opportunity there, and there was this need for this content, which was a new thing, like branded content and small bits of snackable, especially video content, that they're all about. So, you
mentioned, artists and musicians and beat makers, all that kind of stuff. Tell me about the future for TheRight.Fit, and does that involve, geographic expansion? What are you thinking, or are you just trying to kill it in Australia? First, tell me what the future is. I'm sure I'm killing people's questions here, but then we'll go to the questions.
Yes, so definitely bedding down Australia first and foremost, before we burn all of our cash going somewhere else. Definitely international expansion. That has always been the plan from day one. We actually share an office with Matt Rockman from Seek here in Melbourne, and he was like, there is enough market in Australia. Like, you don't need to go overseas. Like, there's a reason that Seek always stayed here. Don't think and don't feel pressured that you need to go overseas from day one. A lot of people think Australia's just a testing ground. We have to
Vino Mofo. I see is he invested too? Because he's always liking your stuff.
Justin is hilarious. Yeah. I spoke on a panel with, not Justin, the other one. whose name I forget.
Andre.
Andre,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, classic.
He is like this wise old sage. Like, I don't know if anyone else has seen him speak, but I'm like, you are just so interesting. I could listen to you talk for hours. He's amazing. They're awesome. They're awesome guys. So definitely bedding down Australia, making sure that we're launching this new product in, hopefully 3 weeks, depending on how our devs go. And so making sure that we've got the new product all thriving as we want. We're launching some pretty game-changing new features in this next version. And a lot of this SaaS sort of product management back end to build out this market network. So once we know
referral kind of stuff. Okay.
Yeah, it's more so about instead of it being transactional, job-based now, you'll actually be able to build a project and unite your entire team around a project. So you'll be able to go, okay, I'm a startup. Over the next 6 months, this is what my marketing calendar looks like. I'm going to need videographers on these dates. I'm going to need photographers on these dates. I'm going to need influencers on these dates. And I want these people to be united around a product. So it might be like a launch event like tonight. I need cameraman, I need sound, I need, I don't know, whatever it might be. And then they can unite around a project. You can move them into group chats and it will allocate your budget out over the course of like a calendar. So trying to keep it really systemized for clients that they don't need to ever leave the platform. Everything's intuitively inside for them and really systemized and process driven. So that's coming next, as well as some additional talent side functionality. So launching that, making sure that obviously product is just kicking, making sure that we've really nailed Australia, and then definitely going overseas. So we actually have 2 people on the ground in New York already. So possibly New York, LA, or Singapore. One of our strategic partners has a big global head office in Singapore, so they're pretty keen for us to go there. So definitely international expansion, definitely obviously looking at what talent categories are thriving, and how these new additions go. And there'll always be the opportunity to add more creative talents. So we get a lot of demand for like DOPs and producers and things like that, but we'll probably leave that to 90 seconds for now.
Well, demand side can come from anywhere at the moment, right?
Yeah.
And I imagine it is.
Yeah, exactly right.
So that would be how you figure out where you're going next.
Yeah.
Let me take some of these questions. What is the worst business advice you've ever received and what was the best? That's a good question.
Worst?
Don't do the marketplace.
God. I got some really bad tax advice when we were first setting up Wink. Definitely learnt the hard way. And we couldn't claim the R&D grant. The Wink was initially set up as a trust, purely a trust, not a proprietary limited inside of a trust. And so to claim the R&D grant, as you probably all know, it has to be a proprietary limited company. It can't be a trust. So I actually had to sell the company from one entity to another entity and pay stamp duty on the transfer of my own company. It fucking stung. So that was really bad advice. Best advice, probably around hiring, and I'm not great at hiring. Sorry, Maggie, who's in the room, from my team, you can stay. No, I really struggle. It's definitely not something that comes intuitively to me. And one of the things that, I'm sure Craig won't mind me saying this, Craig from Airtree had said to me, in the early days, hire 2 people at a time, and for one role, and tell them in 6 weeks the best person will get the job, and fire the other one. And I was like, oh, that's so brutal. I don't know if I'm ready to be that much of a bitch. That's pretty harsh. And he was like, no, but you will learn, okay, maybe you don't want to go that extreme, but you will learn, you need to just fire really fast. You need to, find people, see if they're the right cultural fit. If you're not, don't try it, because I have an awful habit of no, but we'll change your role and make it more like this and see if we can work around you. You just got to be like, this is not working. I'm going to free you like a little bird to go and do something that you're really good at and hire someone who's more suitable for us.
We had Collis from Invita, and he said that he would just figure out that he needed to hire a head of PR or whatever and then ask them what they'd be doing. Right?
Love that. Love
enough
that.
to the next interview he'd know a little bit more.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's awesome.
Do the clients of TheRight.Fit expect to pay less for talent than through Wink? Oh yeah, I guess you answered that a bit, but do you expect professional rates will drop as a result?
Yeah, this is really interesting. This is what everyone says about marketplaces, you're going to bottom out the industry, you're going to kill, professional rates. It's the same issue that 90 Seconds had. Everyone was like, this is the death of advertising. If people can go online and get an ad made through you guys for $5,000, why are they going to go to advertising agencies and pay $50,000? I totally believe that there's a market for both agents and online marketplaces, obviously. I think budgets have changed. That's a fact. And that didn't happen because of marketplaces. That happened because of the change in content. And so clients come to TheRight.Fit, they do get to set their own budget, and it's a pure marketplace system. So if you want to accept that job based on that rate, you can, and you can negotiate exactly like a freelancer or an air tasker. So I don't think that we are going to be the reason that rates change. I think that we allow people with a set budget. We have this conversation with clients all the time. If you have $10,000 to hire a videographer or a model for your campaign, you're not going to be like, I'll see if I can get one for $1,000 instead. Like, you want the $10,000 talent, right? You get what you pay for. But if you've only got $1,000, there's no point in going and asking the $10,000 person, are you going to do this job? And they're going to say, no, my rate's $10,000. So this allows you to find someone that works for your budget. And it allows creatives to have control of their career again. Because what we were finding, horror story. So one of our clients, global international retailer, I won't name them, but we're relaunching a very, very cool Aussie fashion brand that they'd acquired. And they'd picked the model that they wanted to use for the campaign, rang the agency, and they were like, cool, we've picked this model, think she would be awesome for this relaunch, like fucking cool, sexy campaign. Is she available? 3 days later, like no call back, and they're like following up. This is the CEO of this like global group as well. Just following up, have you heard from her? Is she keen? And they're like, oh yeah, I haven't heard back, we'll call back. 2 days later, he's like, I kind of need to make some decisions on this. Like, we really want to shoot it next week. I've got the photographer locked down. Like, we're doing all the creative. Is she or is she not available? It was $100,000 for the model. Like, pretty cool campaign. We think she'd like be great. And they were like, oh, look, she's actually focusing on her acting work at the moment. So she's not going to be available. Here's the girls that you could have instead. And he was like, oh, really? Like, it's pretty cool. It's not like a tampon ad or something. Like, I think this is like going to be like really cool for her. And anyway, local Sydney guy, Bondi guy, bumped into her down at the beach and was like, gutted that we couldn't get you for that campaign, like so sold on you. And she was like, what campaign? Never been asked. She's working in a cafe. She's like, $100,000 would have changed my life. Like, this agency had just decided, no, we want to position you this way and we want you to focus on these things. And instead we'll give you these girls who are our current favourites, who, whatever. So putting the control back in the hands of the people that it belongs to, clients and talent.
Wow. We'll take one more, something a bit more upbeat.
Was that a really morbid story?
No, good story. It's good. We need the war stories. What could you advise from your journey that would be invaluable to any startup?
Ooh. Ask lots of questions along the way. Like, get yourself around really, really amazing people. As I said, like, I'm the biggest LinkedIn stalker. I'll like hit up complete strangers and be like, can I please have an hour of your time? Like, I need to pick your brain on. I met my current mentor by asking someone completely random off LinkedIn who had a global e-commerce platform. What we were trying to decide whether we were going with Stripe or eWay or Braintree, and I was like, which one? Like, surely someone must know the answer to this. This guy will, like, he's the global CEO of an e-commerce platform. He'll fucking be able to tell me the answer. Who did you use? And he's like, I don't know. Like, I don't deal with that stuff. Clearly he should know. But anyway, he was like, speak to my CTO. And that's how I met my current mentor, who was his CTO. So just the power of reaching out to people and being like, hey, can you help me solve this one? Like, that was a super narrow problem. Like, which one of these platforms do I choose? Find the person who's like expert in that field and be like, how can you help? Can you play? No one will say no. Like, the worst you'll get is like, I can't right now, but I can in a month's time. Or like, I don't have time for face-to-face. Can you give me a call or shoot me an email with your question? No one has ever said no. People want to help, and then they're vested in your journey and they want to see you succeed. So get out there and hit people up on LinkedIn.
Yeah, well, if they don't write back, just try again later, right?
Yeah.
Like, people are fucking busy.
Yeah, absolutely.
We'll do one more. Tell us what you expect. We did that. What does a day in your life look like?
It's pretty horrible. No, I get up very early, so I do get up my days. So because we have a team in New York, I have a meeting with them at 7:30 every morning because we do a daily stand-up, and one of our dev is there at the moment. So I get up at 5:40, go to the gym, get to the office, have breakfast at the office, have about 17,000 coffees, and have a meeting with our dev team at 7:30. and do a run through with them. From there, I try and do, so that first like hour and a half before anyone hits the office is like the bliss time where you actually get to do any sort of like blue sky thinking or anything like that before it just becomes the daily churn of like emails and phone calls.
Is there meditation in there? I think this was a Steve question, but I'm not sure.
No, I would love to meditate. I have tried so many times. If anyone meditates here, like fuck, power to you, because it like I've been to that many meditation courses, meditation retreats, like downloaded that many meditation apps, had that many people tell me like, you need to meditate. And I'm like, I fucking know. But I just can't do it. Like, I don't know how. Like it just, I'm like.
I was just curious.
I fight. I think I've got an excuse. I'm like, but I train in the morning, so I can't do it then. And then like, you say not to do it at night before you go to sleep, so I can't do it then. So anyway, I've got loads of excuses about why I can't meditate.
I've got little girls hanging off me, man. I can't like.
Yeah. So then I have loads of like face-to-face. I'm all about the face-to-face meeting as well. Like I think it's super important, all about relationship building. And you really do understand, like coming to someone's environment, like going to their office and seeing like, okay, like what are the pain points in this company and how big is their team and what would they need and like how could we help that? And getting to know them and like really understanding that. So I have lots of, I probably have 5 or 6 face-to-face meetings a day, all over Sydney and Melbourne when I'm here. And in between putting out lots of fires on emails, and then I have a product meeting once a week, so 2-hour product meeting with the team on Mondays. Then we do like once a week scrum. We build in fortnightly sprints, but we still do a once a week scrum anyway, just to catch up on where product's at. And then 2-hour finance meeting on a Wednesday, and then 2-hour PR meeting once a week as well. And then Saturdays I come in and it's like my day of clean up and catch up. And that's where I do anything that's like PR related, writing op-ed pieces. Like I think it's really important to keep abreast of like what's changing in your industry. So writing op-ed pieces, anything that's like not day-to-day stuff gets done on a Saturday carve out. And then I try not to work on Sundays. And I try to come home 2 nights a week for dinner. That's my new rule. It's my new KPI. It's being home for dinner, trying my best.
I want everyone back on their feet. A big thank you, Tara, for coming out tonight. Ooh. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.